Good morning, everyone. You're welcome to today's webinar, Managing Employee Reactions to COVID-19 Business Continuity Strategies. This morning, we are having our webinar speakers, Dr. Olumuyiwa Olusoya, CEO, All Partners HMO, and Mr. Tunji Babajide, the CEO of Awesome Effects Consulting. We are also having two panelists that are going to be in this session. The panelists are um, two individuals from ATC Nigeria, the head of human resources, Mrs. Simi Taiwo, and Mr. Humphrey Ozegbe, the head of human capital, Link Insurance PLC. They're going to be invited sometime during this talk. However, today we'll not be able to have Mr. Humphrey Ozegbe because he's unavoidably absent. Our agenda for today goes thus. We're going to be having the speakers coming forth with their presentation. First of all, we are going to be having Dr. Olumuyiwa of Health Partners. He is a health business, insurance, and wellness expert, and innovation and thought leader in Nigeria's healthcare industry. He is the MD CEO of Health Partners HMO, a nationally accredited and leading health insurance company in Nigeria. He is an honorary fellow of the Institute of Health Insurance and Managed Care in Nigeria and the Institute of Healthcare Finance and Management. He is a member of the Technical Committee of the Health and Managed Care Association of Nigeria. He will be having 15 minutes to speak with us all. After that, we'll be having Mr. Tunji Babajide, CEO of Awesome Effects Consulting. He is a UK certified life coach, therapist, and management consultant with background learning and experience in neuro-linguistic workplace psychology, emotional intelligence, EFT, stress management, and cognitive behavioral therapy. He is the founder CEO of Awesome Effects Consulting Limited in Lekki, Lagos. His facilitation skills have taken him to organizations which include Amazon Oil and Gas, Total Nigeria, Ikeja Electricity and Distribution Company, First Bank, Wima Bank, InterSwitch, IAS Towers, the Federal Mortgage Bank, Arm Pensions, and CIPM. He presently works on different projects and has faculty member, an associate consultant, life coach, and therapist with Africa's foremost life and mind coach, Larry Olushola, USA and /Africa Economic and Business Development Center, Chicago, the Tony Elumelu Foundation, and the famous Leke Alda of Alda Consulting. In this talk too, we'll be having polls that would have to fill at the beginning and at the end of the sessions. Please take your time to fill these polls as they come forth on your screen. Thank you very much. Would have the CEO of Health Partners now, Dr. Olumuyiwa Olusoya, for his presentation. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm very delighted to be here today to have this discussion on our first webinar series that we're having with our clients, with our friends, and with other stakeholders in our industry. Today marks the beginning of a lot of engagements that we're having going forward at Health Partners. And today we decided to look at the concept of how to manage employee reactions to COVID-19 business continuity strategies that most companies are actually implementing at this point in time. We felt that it was very important for us to have this meeting because we know that these decisions, which are business decisions, actually have impact on the health of staff and our enrollees and insured clients in our business. And we felt that we could bring stakeholders together to look at how these decisions are impacting on people's health, what are the best ways to manage people's reactions to all these decisions, given the background of the COVID-19 pandemic and the stress and the challenge that it has brought upon. We're very happy, and we believe that this will be a beginning of great things to come. So I'll just go straight into the presentation. Like Janet said, Lucas said, we'll be looking at some polls that will come on. Please kindly just participate as they come about. So I will go straight into my presentation at this point in time. I'll be talking about managing employee reactions to COVID-19 business continuity strategies. And I'll be looking at it from the concept of health, looking at how we view health and how has health insurance companies will design health plans to be able to cover the health of individuals. And to make sure that we do this well at this time, we are looking at what has changed, what is the new normal, and what are the concepts that we need to be pushing at this time to make sure that healthcare is wholesome, it is all-encompassing, and it covers all aspects that it's supposed to cover. And also, we are looking at stress that people are exposed to at this point in time, given business continuity decisions that will have to be taken, which is inevitable at this point in time. And we're looking at how best to manage, all this, at this season. So I'll be talking about health insurance concept, health insurance and the concept of health and wellness generally. Then we look at COVID-19 and the new stressors that it has brought to us and the things that are happening and people are going through and how best to navigate those stressors at this point in time. And how best to manage employee health during this pandemic. Then beyond the pandemic, what are the new concepts we'll be looking at? Some of these concepts may not be new, but we need to embrace them now going forward so that we can have the best healthcare. And as insurers, we should also make sure that the health provision, what is traditionally accessed, but we have to look at new dimensions to provision of healthcare that looked at all the areas of health and wellness so that people can get the best form of healthcare. As far back as 1948, the WHO defined health as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not the absence of disease or infirmity. This definition of health from the WHO has not changed since 1948. And the truth about it is that at that time, this was the line has gone off. Welcome back. Sorry about that. Okay, sorry about that. I was talking about the concept of health. I was saying that this has not changed since that time. And since that time, we have seen health We have seen health as a complete physical, mental, and social well-being, state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not the absence of disease or infirmity. And health insurance, and to be precise, the managed care model of health insurance actually places a lot of emphasis on health and wellness. So understanding this definition becomes very important to us because our business is designed around this concept. And as we begin to navigate the new occurrences that we are seeing right now, we know that we need to redesign some of our healthcare provision models. And that's why we're having these discussions today. So WHO still sees health as a state of complete physical, mental, social well-being, and not just the absence of disease. But this concept have changed over the years, and we'll be looking at some of these new concepts as we go on. So we look at COVID-19 and what has changed. COVID-19 has brought a lot of stressors, to people, and the way people are responding, is what we're now talking about. First is a disease that doesn't have a cure. So people have the disease, they are not sure whether they will even survive it. They are not sure whether they will ever be able to have access to, treatments that will be able to solve the problem and treat them and get them well. So there's a lot of fear, a lot of stress, there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of worry about, the health and even the health of our loved ones. And this has put a lot of strain on the health of people generally. Then also at the workplace, there's a lot of fear, anxiety about jobs. What's going to be the outcome, of the decisions that will be taken by many employers. And we know that a lot of companies have actually, implemented any of these, three, options, whether they are pay cuts, whether they are going to lay off people on leave without pay, or status quo might remain for most people. But what is important is that we know that despite, the assurances from government and healthcare practitioners and all that, that this is in control, a lot of people are going through a lot of stress. They're actually afraid and they're anxious about their health and their jobs, their livelihood, their income. And those are the things that we're looking at. How are these things impacting the health of people today, and how can we best manage it? So the stressors actually lead to a lot of wrong patterns, wrong habits, and a lot of consequences that are not, they are not healthy. Some people go into wrong eating patterns. They are not able to concentrate. They are not able to sleep, either out of fear or out of anxiety. Then a lot of people have chronic health problems. They are even finding it very difficult to actually access care, go to the hospitals, because they are afraid of catching coronavirus at the hospitals because of the risk of coronavirus infection. It's very high at the healthcare facilities. So a lot of people that will have been on medication, that have gone to see their specialists, gone to do a test, a follow-up, annual medical, they are sitting at home, they are avoiding to go to hospital. So we are beginning to see worsening health of people conditions. Also, all the stress and the anxiety and the fear is actually degenerating into mental health conditions in the wider population. And as we said it, that the absence of disease does not mean that somebody is healthy. So likewise, when it comes to mental health, the absence of a mental disease or a mental condition, a diagnosis, does not mean the person has, some mental wellness, as it will. Now, people are also trying other things to cope with this stress. Some people are using alcohol, some are using tobacco, they're using other forms of drugs, cannabis, all other forms of drugs to manage this stress. The stress of the crisis of COVID-19 and the impact on our lives, on our health, and also the stress of how do I manage, the risk attached to probably losing my income, having a pay cut, having been laid off, or being asked to go on compulsory leave without pay, or even if the job is even sustained, nothing is done to the salary. People are still afraid. They're still afraid that something might go wrong. oh, maybe the company will say tomorrow, we're going to implement pay cut or something like that, or we're going to ask people to go. So there's still that fear, that's paranoia just still going on in the background. And people are trying to cope by trying to use different substances. Some people that have been using alcohol before will now start abusing it more. Some people using tobacco might start abusing it more, and this might actually lead to further deterioration of health. So this brings us to the concept of total wellness. Beyond the definition of WHO, which says that health, is a state of complete mental, social, been developed over time to look at other areas of health that are important. And these are the 8 dimensions of wellness. There are many more that people have actually proposed, but there are other areas that are important. For example, our environment. Our environment has a lot of impact on our health. How healthy, how safe, how clean our environment is will determine how healthy we are. Also, our financial status, financial capability, and strength is also very important. We also have spiritual dimension to wellness, which is very, very important. It helps us to be in control of our mind and be able to think straight and take decisions, face adversity, face challenges, and develop the resilience that we need to actually go through this time at this point in time. And also our vocation, our occupation. How healthy is our vocation? How healthy is our work? Because it has a direct impact, on our health. Emotional status is also very important. Things that happen in that space can actually affect work, can actually affect our health as a whole. Our social interactions are also very important. At this point in time, COVID is tampering with this. COVID is tampering with our social interactions. We're not able to communicate, we're not able to interact the way we used to before. And that's actually costing ill health to a lot of people because some people can't just cope. We are all social beings and it's so very, very difficult to actually cope at this time, not being able to, to actually, interact and engage the way we have been doing before. We have been used to the physical and the mental state of mind, but these other concepts make us see health in a wholesome way. And we need to be able to address this to make sure that people are able to navigate through these challenges and in their private lives as a whole. So this now brings me to the concept that we're discussing today, that wellness should extend beyond traditional definition of health. And that's what we're saying. And as health insurers, we're also looking to expand on this to make sure that services under the health insurance package is actually well-rounded and is able to cover all areas that I'm talking about, the environment, our finances, spiritual, vocational. While we may not provide all the services under health insurance, we want to be able to acknowledge that they contribute to people's health and wellness and actually find a way to provide support for them to have access to these services wherever they are available. This concept has now also provided justification for what our HR practitioners have been doing for many years, which is also growing. The practice of which is also growing. The concept of employee assistance programs that looks at what people are going through directly at work or even outside the workplace and how it affects the work and how this can now be channeled to make sure that the staff, the employee is well taken care of. All these dimensions are looked at and issues coming up are actually addressed, from all these areas. And we believe that in our own practice, we'll be able to find ways to create partnerships, make sure all these dimensions of health are taken care of so that we can have awesome health provision for our people. Some of these things will not be provided for in the traditional settings like the hospitals and all that. But we must acknowledge that they exist and we must find support for people that need those services. And My friend Tunji will also be talking about this in his presentation. We'll be looking at how all this concept can be used to actually drive health and wellness. Looking at what it specializes in, therapy and coaching and all that, to see how this addresses the other areas that we're talking about, the emotional, the mental part of well-being. And this is what we'll be looking at. So in summary, new approaches to employee health now and beyond COVID-19 have to address issues that go beyond just absence of disease. We must look at things beyond absence of disease. The fact that somebody does not have a disease does not mean he's healthy. And we must provide other support. We must provide other areas where they can get support, where they can get therapy, where they can get help to actually navigate the challenges they are facing. The wellness concept must be adopted in provision of services. And this is why we're having this webinar, to try and see how HR practitioners are looking at this concept. And as they're making their business continuity decisions, how are they considering the health of their staff, whether they stay or they are leaving? How are they managing that transition to make sure that people are actually able to face the challenges that are coming ahead of them, and also addressing wholesome health in such a way that we're able to help people to build resilience and maintain a positive attitude, which is the secret to good mental health. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Lusaya of Health Partners. In a few minutes, we'll be having Mr. Tunji come up with his presentation for 30 minutes. And after that, we'll be having a question and answer session that'll be for 45 minutes from any questions we might be having from either of the panelists. Thank you very much. Mr. Tunji will come up now.
Hey. All right. Very good morning to everyone. Okay. I think it's a good way there's a way you can go into the comment section and just put your hands together for Dr. Muyiwa Olusanya for that short but powerful presentation. Okay. All right. Because we're pressed for time and I know we're corporate people, I'll try to juggle this in about 30 minutes. Then after that, just like Simi said, we will have other people join me in the panelist section so we can answer a few questions. All right, so my name is Tunji Babajide. I'm a management consultant. I'm a UK certified life coach. I'm a neuro-linguistic practitioner 1 and 2. I'm also an emotional intelligence certified practitioner. I've been doing this for well over 10 years. And I mean, if you need to have access to my profile, I could make it available. Let's get to the business of the day. All right, so it's not news that the world is experiencing a very, very terrible pandemic that has come to, put a total turnaround to how we've been doing things. Pretty much, a lot of us have never been here before. No one has ever seen this kind of thing before. The entire world was practically shut down. And we must embrace the realities of the challenges that this has brought. I mean, every day, if you're the type that is very active with your WhatsApp status, you realize that on every night, different people post the number of cases of COVID-19 that appeared yesterday from the test and all of that. But there's a lot of noise about COVID-19. But please, I need you to listen to me. There is a noiseless effect of COVID-19. It's not in the dailies. It's not making headline news. It's not on anyone's status. It's not being tweeted, but yet it exists. The noiseless effect of COVID-19 is what will usher us into the new normal. That presupposes that there are certain impacts that COVID-19 has ushered into our life that will be with us for a very long time. one of the loudest news that we need to embrace is the fact that social distancing, interaction, less contact will be the new normal. That alone has its own challenges because there's what we call the feel-good hormones, the dopamine, oxytocin, and all of that. Is when we cuddle, when we hug, when we shake, that we release the feel-good hormones. However, if we're going to be faced with the fact that we will have less of interaction, your guess is as good as mine that we will be facing another level of health challenges that we're not used to. And thankfully, Dr. Muyiwa shared with us a couple of, the health part of the COVID-19. I'm just going to come into the emotional side, because at the root of all of this are certain things that we're not used to. And I think that the question anyone who wants to be relevant at this time needs to ask is, what is too much? What is too little? What is too little, in the sense that what skill do I need to scale up? What reality do I need to embrace? A great man said, the illiterate of the 21st century is not he that cannot read or write, is he that cannot unlearn, relearn, and learn. I'm also reminded of the story of Kodak. Kodak, I grew up in the city of Ibadan, and I remember my dad used to take us to Tunakin, and we used to go take pictures. And I remember how they used to roll the pictures before they come out. And those days Kodak was everywhere. If you want to buy a camera, it was Kodak. But Kodak was committed to what has expired. And that's the challenge that a lot of people are making at this time. This is a time where you have to embrace a lot of unlearning, a lot of relearning, a lot of learning, whether as HR practitioners or CEOs or as individuals, because the new normal will rock our boat. The new normal will usher into us a very unfamiliar terrain. Having said that, if we're going to look into the impact of the disruption, the impact of COVID-19, the impact of the pandemic, you will agree with me. Okay, I think I need to, okay, sorry. You will agree with me that most organizations have been thinking, or some of them have even implemented, I think Access or something, that even implemented certain cutting salary, layoffs of staff. They've asked some other people to to go on leave without pay, and many other things. In fact, some of those people that have a job now, there's so much uncertainty. I saw a webinar very recently. A young guy was trying to say, "Oh, we're going to set goals. We're going to realign our visions." And I was chatting him up. I was saying, "How do you have visions when there's uncertainty?" Because the uncertainty at this time has affected budget, has affected consumption, it has affected our preferences, it has affected our prejudices. The reality is we're on a journey to nowhere. We're on a journey to where we're not aware. So everyone is a bit paranoid. The first 2-3 weeks, it was a back-to-back session with different people that were paranoid. Some people had anxiety disorder. Some people had, different things. But the impact of that pandemic for the organization is largely those three things, and I'm going to focus on that. Layoffs that was not planned. And I can tell you for free, some people already have loans they're running, so they've been asked to go home. I'm sure you know that the impact of that will not be smiling. Some people, they've been asked to have a cut in salary. Some other people, they've asked to tell them, you've got to go on leave. We've not laid you off, but we are going to ask you to go on leave without pay. If that is the reality of what many organizations will do, we must also think about the impact. So what will be the impacts of this? Okay, there will be psychological distress. Certain people will grieve over their job loss. Some other people would be in absolute total shock. They won't be able to embrace it, because whether we believe it or not, a lot of people attach their esteem to their work. They attach their esteem to being able to live in the morning and come back at night. I'm pretty reminded of a particular young man who lived in a neighborhood. He was a bit less privileged or underprivileged compared to those he was living with. And he realized that everyone had a dish, a DSTV dish right outside of their house. So the kids were saying to him, "Daddy, we don't have a dish at home. Why is it that we're the only one that don't have a dish? Guess what? The father decided to go and buy a dish without a decoder just to align with the Joneses. That's the same way a lot of people have attached their esteem to their job. They've attached their esteem to where they go in the morning. So for us to think that the impact of the pay cut, the impact of the layoffs, the impact of the leave without pay will not affect organizations or will not affect individuals. It's just like trying to deny the fact that when you go inside the rain, you will not be wet. The impact is there. But like I said earlier, there is the noiseless effect of COVID-19. It's not on Twitter. It's not on social media, but yet it has a very subtle and very powerful effect on our productivity. It has a very powerful effect on our performance. It has a very powerful effect on our mental health. Okay, and I'm going to be showing you a couple of slides as we proceed. So what are the symptoms? So if you're an HR manager or you work in the, you do 9 to 5, or you work with a team, you're a team lead or whatever it is, there are certain symptoms you will see in the people that are with you at this time. Also, I need to also mention that people who stay in front of TV, checking updates, and getting the news about COVID-19, research has it that they have as much impact as people who go to work. Okay, because this is hitting our emotions hard in a very subtle, subliminal way. Okay, so there is what I call the unconscious learning. A lot of people are unconsciously learning to live in fear. A lot of people are unconsciously, scaling up their fear quotient and all of that. So the symptoms include intellectual disability. I mean, that doesn't need so much explanation. When you have intellectual disability, it shows that you won't be able to perform at your optimum. You will be suboptimal, pretty much. There is what we call the separation anxiety disorder. So for anyone who's had an attachment to a job prior to this time, or is job prior to this time, not only kids, separation anxiety disorder is a lot more associated with children, but also adults have it. Okay, for someone who derives esteem in the kind of car he drives, even though he's still trying to pay for it, you expect that person to have what is called separation anxiety disorder. There's also what is stress-related disorders. Okay, there's what is called the post-traumatic stress disorder. There's a lot of eating disorder that the pandemic will usher in. There will be a lot of sleeping disorders. Either you sleep too much or you sleep too little. There will be insomnia. And I'm also mentioned that everyone don't respond to any pandemic the same way. Some people are very calm in the midst of it. Some other people, they're a bit volatile. Some other people are withdrawn from social life. However, we can't deny the noiseless effect of COVID-19. And if you look at the different boxes you have on your screen, from the intellectual disability to the separation anxiety disorder, to the stress disorders, to the post-traumatic stress disorder, to the eating disorder, to the sleep disorders, and the insomnia, you will agree with me pretty much that we're in for a lot of trouble. And the truth be told, our society does not embrace mental health. As a mental health practitioner, as a mental health advocate, one of the greatest challenges I've faced with clients is stigmatization. I've had people have to book for sessions at 10 p.m., have to book for sessions, physical sessions, not virtual sessions, at 9 p.m. And I'm always wondering, what exactly? That was many years ago when I started, and I realized that they're running away from the stigmatization of mental health. Okay, so as much as we've yet not embracing the reality of it, loads of people are having these mental health issues, and we got to face it headlong now. Okay, so sometimes last year, I think it was November or December, I'd worked with a client who was, had some issues at home, coupled with the fact that also at work, business wasn't doing well. It was a combination of several disorders. At some point, by the time we're having our third session, I realized that some level of hallucination are setting. I knew that's my boundary. So in a value chain, we have different people that work with us, psychiatrists and all of that. So I had to call my psychiatric doctor. I'm like, we need to do a referral so that this particular person can see a psychiatrist. Sadly, after the person diagnosed him, you won't believe it, the 3 major psychiatric private centers we have in Lagos were totally booked. Animals aren't there. The people there are human beings. Okay, so that says to you and I that the reality of our mental health is gradually coming into being. and we've got to embrace it. We can't afford to live in denial. We can't afford, especially as decision makers, especially as people who should pioneer what is right. I think it's a good time for us to look into this consistently. Recently, a church walked up to me and said I should help them draw out a questionnaire to test mental health for people who want to get married. Amazing, isn't it? Yes, it's gotten to that. Prior to this time, okay, I'm from the Christian faith. What we usually ask for is people should send in their pregnancy test, they should send in their genotype test, they should send in. But now, churches are embracing, or they're putting on the table, mental health tests. Why? Because this pandemic will even shoot it up like we have never seen it before. Let me run because of time. Okay? Symptoms also include intellectual disability, depressive episode, beg your pardons, and all of that. Okay, let me run. Yeah. So here is another powerful quote, and I want you to please read it. If possible, I need you to write this down. A great man called Bruce Lipton, you can check him online, said this very amazing statement, and is connected to what we're talking about. He said 95% of diseases are caused by stress, and 100% of stress is caused by a wrong belief. You will agree with me that there is no other time where this is applicable to a time like now. How do I mean? Several people are embracing wrong beliefs. Several people are in doubt, they're uncertain, they're paranoid, they have anxiety disorder, they have all manner of disorders. And what that will do is that they will begin to embrace very wrong beliefs. So if 95% of diseases are caused by stress and 100% of stress is caused by wrong beliefs, you and I will agree that if we have mental health tests being carried out the way COVID-19 test is carried out, you would agree with me that the numbers will have spiked. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so this is another. So everything I'm sharing on the screen, they're research-based. So I just want you to follow me so that we can see the reality of our environment. Okay, so negative emotions, unresolved emotional traumas are 6 times deadlier than the effect of smoking and alcohol. So someone who's got anxiety disorder, someone who's got different episode of mania and all of that, this says that they are 6 times deadlier than the effect of smoking and alcohol. Okay? See, this is another powerful fact I need you to embrace. Okay, so this is something about depression. Depression is the most common mental and emotional health disorder. Depression is the leading cause of disability worldwide, and it's a major contributor, beg your pardon, to the global burden of disease. More women are affected by depression than men, and it is very real illness. Okay, the WHO has predicted that depression will be the world's 2nd deadliest disease and the source of disability by 2020. I'm sure this was put together a few years ago, and it will be the world's #1 killer and source of disability by 2030. Okay? If you ask Igbo boys, they will tell you that Prozac, I'm sure doctor would agree with me, Prozac is one of the highest selling drugs in Nigeria. What is it for? It's used for depressant, it's used for people who have anxiety, it's used as an anti-panic drug. I mean, it's there. If you ask anyone who has a pharmacy to do a list of the drugs they sell regularly, Prozac is one of them. And that says to us that the WHO prediction is finding expression. I mean, one very sad day of my life I'll never forget is January 2018. What happened? A client had walked into my office and we had signed up for sessions of depression because she had been a victim of domestic violence, and culture and religion says to her that God doesn't need divorce. Sadly, she never lived to tell the story. I'm sure maybe a couple of us will remember a particular lady that was pushed from the balcony, I think somewhere on the island. I can't remember where exactly it was. So by the time I got the news from the family, I had to go bury a client. Sad. But why am I saying that? I'm saying that because she was living in denial. Okay, cultural issues are also there. There are several people who they mystify mental health. In fact, one of the places I have my office, one of my neighbors said to me, he said, the man that parks mad people. That's how much stigmatization we're facing. And that's why I think organizations and individuals need to join this journey where we need to be advocates, where we need to ensure that there's less stigmatization for mental health, because even in our constitution, in our the law of the land, there's nothing practical, there's nothing that we can write home about mental health. I think I heard that when they were trying to review what was written when the constitution was put together, I think you passed the second reading or something, but I can say to you that the billions that have been donated to government for for COVID-19, I can say to you for free that little or nothing will be allocated to mental health. Don't forget, I've been mentioning one statement, that this pandemic there's a noiseless effect of it that is not on Twitter, that is not on social media, yet is hitting us very hard. Okay, so there's a need, having said all of that, there's a need for mental health awareness. There's a need for organizations to begin to have maybe a day of the week or maybe twice in a month. There has to be a structure around it, because as Africans, we are living in denial. We're not willing to embrace it. Some people are spiritualizing it. Some people are stigmatizing it. So we've got to make sure that the awareness is a collective of both the corporate organizations, of the mental people in the mental health value chain, for HMOs and all of that, so that we can have more people be on the front burner as we try to embrace the noiseless effect that is going to ravage our society. Okay, having said that, what then is mental health? Let me just do a little bit of an introduction. Mental health is so I presume we all know, but just indulge me to do this. Mental health is a continuum. So there's nothing like I'm forever, I have mental health for the rest of my life. No. It's a spectrum. It ranges from having a good mental health to having a mental disorder. Okay, a person will vary along this continuum at different points of his or her life. So you will agree with me that in the last 8 weeks that we've had this pandemic and we've had this shutdown, the number of people whose mental health had been oscillating up and down are going to be a lot more. And you see, part of what a lot of people don't also know is that when these symptoms or when these issues begin to get into them, they will be denying it because there's little or no awareness. One very and I came to my office and I was trying to make her say the fact that this. She technically, practically was just denying it. She was saying very, very unbelievable things. And I know the reason is because a lot of people still don't understand that the effects as hitting us so bad. Okay, so what is mental health disorder? Mental health disorder is a diagnosable illness that affects a person's thinking, affects a person's emotional state and behavior, and disrupts the person's ability to work on, carry out other daily activities in a satisfying relationship. Medically, mental disorders are among disabling diseases. Okay, disability is also the disruption a health problem causes to a person's ability to work, care for himself, herself, and for relationships around them. A mental health problem challenge is another term that includes both mental disorders, symptoms of mental health challenges that may not be severe enough to warrant the diagnosis of a mental health disorder. Okay, so part of what because we realize that our society is very judgmental, and also because there's a lot of stigmatization, we've tried to put together what we call a first aid, mental health first aid, which is basically to help people with mental health challenge to find, just the same way we have first aid in our offices, we have first aid in our homes, we have first aid on the pitch and all of that. So this has been designed so that we can use it as HR practitioners, as leaders, thought leaders, and all of that. And it's very simple. We called it the ALGGG. If you want to call it ALGA, it's fine. So there's a cost for that on its own. But we decided to put all of that together to help people who have access to other people and people who are caregivers and all of that as a stepping stone before they find professional help. Okay, so mental health first aid encourages self-help. It encourages self-care. It's no self-medication, but all of that is just to give that landing before a professional comes in. I need to talk about self-care a lot. At the root of mental health is self-care. Okay, so if you look back and realize that times when you were depressed, or times when you found anyone depressed around you, or someone who was a bit discouraged, they won't bother about how they look. Okay, but because I don't want to go off my slide, I'll just quickly explain the actions that an average person can deploy to help people with mental health symptoms. Okay, A talks about assessing for risk of suicide or harm, because it's a continuum. So from they begin to have conversations about hopelessness, cluelessness. They begin to get a bit withdrawn. Some people, they're eating, is either they have excessive eating or they have too little of it, among many other things. Then they'll begin to have suicidal thoughts, and all of that. Sometimes hallucination, comes in that space. Sometimes it doesn't. And it's very sad that we don't even have the data. We have a WhatsApp group where we try to collate that data. During the pandemic alone, the one that was recorded, and there was several that wasn't recorded, there were over a dozen cases of suicide in our country during the last 8 weeks. Else talks about listening non-judgmentally. G talks about give assurance and information about maybe a professional that you can see. Reassurance talks about the fact that yes, if there is life, there can be hope. E talks about encourage appropriate professional help. The other E talks about encourage self-help, self-care, and other support strategies. Research also has it that people that have healthy support system, they have tendencies to build emotional resilience much more than people who are isolated. So what I'm going to do for people who come for therapy and coaching is to do a personality assessment, because when you find certain personality, there's certain traits that come with them. For people who are extroverts, who can talk and they can gesticulate, it's very difficult for them to harbor a lot of things when they're troubled. But when you find people who are very withdrawn, they're more prone to having mental health issues more than other personality. I need to run, my time is fast spent. So we've come up with 8 lifestyle windows of the human mind by which stress attacks. I won't be able to break it down, but I'll just mention it. The first one is weight fitness. When there's a lot of eating disorder, you will agree with me that people will have tendencies to add weight. Emotions, okay? All of the things that we've been saying. Leisure has become, anyone who's planned vacation from March ending till now has totally been cancelled. Even those that don't technically or literally travel out of the country, there's a need where we need to raise more awareness. You might not be able to go to the United States of America, but you can go to the United States of Ibadan. Just go away from work and find somewhere where you can detach from your routine for your self-care and for your mental health. Learning, unlearning, and relearning. Nutrition. The environment is very important. Dr. Muyiwa also mentioned that sexuality and also spirituality. Okay. If you remember, about 2 slides away, I mentioned the fact that anyone who is finding some of those, seeing some of those symptoms, they need to seek professional help. And the professional help is available. Thank God for Dr. Muyiwa and the L partners for making this meeting available. Is also to create more awareness for many people who don't even know that therapy and coaching is available. A client walked up to my office and said, "Oh, they do therapy in Nigeria. I only know about shrinks." I said, "Yeah, whatever name you call it, the reality is there can be emotional clusters that can sabotage your productivity and your performance." Okay, so there are 4 important elements of business continuity plan. Okay, I like to say that emotions drive people and people drive performance. Let me say that again. Emotions drive people and people drive performance. So if their emotions are distorted, if they have uncomfortable emotions, if they have self-sabotaging habits, thoughts, and beliefs, your guess is as good as mine. They won't be able to work optimally. There's several people who resumed in a suboptimal way. Okay, and we're asking that their KPI isn't as much as good as they used to be. Yeah, we as HR practitioners, as CEOs, we've got to lower our expectation. We've got to wear our expectation management cap, because a lot of people are not okay. Okay, so the next building block is process. Okay, so we also need to look at the processes. What's our process by which people access coaching and therapy? What is the process by which people access employee assistance program, or some people call it employee support program? We also need to look at, then also finances and every other thing. We also need to look at profits. Okay, if emotions drive people and people drive performance, your guess is as good as mine that if people's emotional intelligence or their resilience have dropped, it will totally affect the profit. And also partnerships, partnership with HMOs, partnership with therapists, partnership with coaches, organizations that are psychotherapists, also psychiatrists, and all of that are in that value chain for the reality of this post-COVID. Okay, so does coaching work? Very powerful question. The personal benefits of individual and group coaching are, it's a wide range, and I'll just run through them because I've got just about 10 minutes more. Okay, so numerous clients report that coaching positively has impacted their career, has impacted their lives. I don't believe there's work-life balance. I believe there's work-life integration. So during coaching sessions, we, number one, establish and take action towards an achievable goal. Then also we look at becoming more self-resilient, self-reliant. We look at gaining more job and life integration, contribute more effectively to the team and the organization. We also help clients to take greater responsibility and accountability for actions and commitment, to work more easily and productively with their bosses, with their superiors, and their peers, etc. Also, coaching will help people communicate effectively, because you see, once there is a cognitive distortion, you realize that the three major ways by which you measure effective communication, from rapport to body language to the tone of your voice, you realize that your staffs want to communicate in a particular way, but yet the person they're communicating with is not getting that particular response. So this is just one out of several things that coaching and therapy does. Fact about workplace coaching: statistics report that a study involving Fortune 1000 companies who engage coaches for change and growth coaching explored the general value and return on investment of executive coaching and present the following. Okay, I'm sure we can read all of that because of time. Okay, I'll go to the next slide. What else does coaching and therapy do for individuals, for groups and all of that? It helps clarity. It helps you to focus on your focus. There is a very funny joke on social media now. People are saying 2020 has a virus. We have to delete and reinstall the year. How that works, I don't know. But it's critical for us to embrace this reality and to also find bespoke specific solution for different needs. Let me just run through this. Or maybe you don't feel like something's holding you back, or you're one step forward or taking two steps backward. Either way, you are not getting what you want, or you are not progressing towards what you want fast enough. At times, we all think ourselves into a corner and find it impossible to think our way out of it. Just when are sitting down to tackle issue in question, you get a call or notification or pings or distraction dragging you down the rabbit hole and neutralizing your ability to be constructive, to be positive, to be productive, to ensure that your performance is consistent, etc. It all ends up with you're feeling utterly frustrated, realizing we're all back at square one, scratching your head while you're asking yourself, what happened to the optimistic goal-getter I was once? What happened to my drive? What happened to my desire to ensure that my KPIs are in place? What happened to my team spirit? All of these questions will arise, but not many people will be able to find answers to them, because not everyone, as a psychologist, I realize that one of the greatest issues that human beings have is change. We fight change so much. If this was a classroom, there's several exercises I've put out there, and more than 90% of people will fail. That's the way the mind was constructed. So for change to be embraced, there has to be a level of intentionality. There has to be the reason behind the reason why people need to make that particular change. This nearly always leads to a circle of despair and negative thoughts that can soon become a negative belief or a limiting belief as the personal development would refer to them. So there's a lot of people working out there. They have self-sabotaging habits, they have limiting beliefs, they have negative beliefs, they have clusters that they're not even aware of. They're blurry. The next 6 months is not clear. There's a lot of uncertainty. People are paranoid. All of this points to the fact that coaching and therapy is very needed. Okay? So if you want to achieve your goals, declutter your brain, get clarity, regain focus, and live a fulfilling life, then you need to stop going back and forth, not getting anywhere. Someone jokingly said that 2020 looked very promising, but it looked like we were at the journey going nowhere. Okay, so we need to learn how to make insightful decisions and do whatever it takes so you have more joy, more productivity, more performance at work, and also ultimately have better results. So I need you to imagine that someone is unchained. The person is free of all annoying things stopping them. The person has, imagine yourself having very clear thoughts, crystal clear thoughts. Imagine you being able to project the end of the year and being able to, put that narrative together in a way that is usable, in a way that you can work with, so that when you're reviewing your goal by the end of the year, you will have achieved them. Also, therapy, what if you can get rid of the past hurt? A lot of people have inherited opinions. There's anxiety, there's depression, there's trauma. Too many people have baggage. When I get into a couple of maybe conflict resolution with couples, I realized that too many people bring in baggage from their past, inherited opinions, because the reality is that no one sits down to form their values. Our values are inherited, our beliefs are inherited, they're shaped by our DNA, our environment, they're shaped by the authority figures that we've had in time past and all of that. Okay, so if you want to change all of that, you need to be able to sit on the therapy couch, a coaching couch, where you will experience neuro-linguistic programming, behavioral change therapy, emotional intelligence, among many others. Okay, so I don't want to go through this again. I just run through the next slide. So what many organizations are doing to address this workplace reality, 78% say that the most common resource used to address stress is their employee assistant program. Some people call it employee support program. EAPs help employees deal with personal problems that may negatively affect work performance and overall well-being. 46% offer work-life integration programs. 45% offer leadership training on work stress. 45% offer on-site healthy lifestyle programs. 43% offer a fitness center. 38% offer physical activity programs, especially because a lot of times we're always sitting in the car, we're sitting in the offices, and the reality is that has an impact on us. It has an impact on our mental health. It has an impact on our body. Okay, so we need to break that chain by encouraging physical activities. Also, 35% have stress awareness campaign. 30% have financial management classes. 49% offer personal health, lifestyle management, coaching, and therapy. You can get all of that from the Ball Consultant survey about stress in the workplace. Okay, I don't want to go into mental health again. My time is up. I want to really thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. I hope something of value had been passed across. I had to rush all of the things I wanted to say in 30 minutes so that I don't exceed my time. I want to thank the L partners for this privilege and this access. And I want to thank everyone who has attended. I'm sure you've been able to pick one thing or the other. My phone number is on the screen, and my email address is right on the screen. Once again, I say a big thank you. Dr. Muiwa, over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tunji. It was so enlightening hearing the impact of COVID-19, the silent
Noiseless
effects that we are
effects.
yet to address. The noiseless effects, thank you very much, sir. We have a lot of questions coming in at the
Okay.
moment. Some are addressed to you and others to Dr. Olu Soya.
Okay.
We are going to
So are you going to read them out so that you would?
Yeah. Mukun can go ahead. Let's have them one by one. How are you doing today, Simi?
Good morning. I'm fine. I'm doing well.
Thank you, Simi.
All right.
So let's go ahead. Oh,
Okay, Simi, is Simi there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, do you want me to read them or you want to read them?
Okay, are the questions in the chat section?
Yes, I can see a few here
Okay.
already.
Okay. Which particular one am I reading? Because some are macroeconomic, some are HR related.
Okay.
was a little glitch there.
Okay. So there's one that says at the end of April 2020, a couple's monthly income was 600,000 naira. Unfortunately, the husband who contributed more, 450,000 naira, was laid off. The family now runs with 150,000 from the wife. In the office, the wife, who as at April was exceptional, but in the current appraisal scored less than 50%. I suppose that would be like a developmental rating. How can this be handled in the workplace in order to bring the lady back to our exceptional level? So I think I will answer that. These are unprecedented times, and I think HR practitioners should know that people will be going through a whole lot. So one of the things that, from my own experience that we have done is to, reevaluate our priorities as HR. This is a time that we have to get close to managers. There's a lot of responsibilities that falls on the shoulders of HR and also on the shoulders of managers. So HR is supposed to train and engage a lot of managers to be more engaging with their employees, because people are going through a whole lot of challenges, personal challenges. And it is important that we go down to the basics. Our conversation and communication and engagement should be semi-formal and informal. We should know what each person's situation will be within our teams. We should know if they are having any sort of challenge. Those that have school-age children that are doing homeschooling, we should be able to offer any form of psychological or, physical or mental support that we can offer to them. So for this lady that used to be a high performer that is now below the required performance, I think, it's time for the manager to try and be more understanding in terms of how the lady is engaged. Does she need time off? Does she need to keep coming to work? I think a lot of organizations are, adopting a flexible working system as of now, because we had a time where people were working from home. So I think this is a time that the business or the manager through the business has to engage the employee and see how they can support and put ideas in our minds that could help the home front get better. That's my own take.
Okay, just let me add a bit to that. Well, from my own angle as a therapist and a life coach, I would suggest that this is where employee assistance program or employee support program comes in, because you see, it's only a quack that will do prescription before diagnosis.
Yeah.
So that case might be, we might have 25 of that kind of a case, but we've got to be able to ask. That's where coaching comes in, where you can ask in-depth questions, because in our society, we have a lot of people who have embraced what I call self-imposed stressors. They have gone beyond their threshold of how much they can spend. They're trying to be like the Joneses. They're trying to do things beyond what their capacity can carry. So it will be, for me, to approach it in a very thorough way, it would require some level of one-to-one coaching to ask further questions. Because, yeah, what comes to mind, I agree with what you said, but what also comes to mind is, how do they cut down on cost? How do they, find answers to those things that they have never, embraced in time past? So all of that spectrum has to be put in perspective, because for all these issues we're talking about, there can be maybe a landing approach to it, but there can never be a one-size-fits-all. Tai might have that same problem. The approach to getting it done might be totally different. Kehinde might have that same problem. The approach also might be totally different. However, if we want to find solutions that are lasting, we've got to be able to dig deep, and that can't happen in a classroom or behind the desk. It has to sit with a professional who can dig deep and find the answers to how they can recalibrate their life, and they can make the necessary adjustments and charge after life in an unstoppable manner.
Yeah, I agree with you. But generally speaking, a lot of employees, you have to create a level of trust, and they have to be comfortable to be able to talk to you. And after you have been spoken to as the HR or as the manager, you should be able to recommend further support from either professionals like you've mentioned, or any other form of support that the business can offer. Unfortunately, we're in a situation whereby a lot of businesses are not faring equally, meaning that some have not been so much impacted by the economic side of COVID-19, and some have been impacted greatly. So the level of support organizations can give differs at this particular moment. But nevertheless, if we value such an employee, we should be able to find ingenious ways that won't be economic, won't pose a lot of economic impact to the employee. And we should be able to support the employee at this particular moment.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Simi and Mr. Tunji. This question goes to Dr. Lusoya. It says, how would you define health considering the new normal and taking into account social distancing and the inevitable absence of the feel-good factor from a warm hug or handshake?
Well, thank you, Ayuko. Well, the truth about it is that life is not always predictable. The truth about it, even the handshake we're talking about, is a culture that we developed over time. So it's not, nobody was born without knowledge of handshake. It's part of culture. So a lot of things are changing the way we live, the way we interact, the way we socialize. So it actually does not stop the socialization. It just, in a way, gives us a new twist to how to do it. So if you see somebody now, and instead of you shaking the person, you just bow, you nod your head, you smile, or you wave, you doff your hat for a person, you are signaling the person. So we just have to learn to adapt, to what is changing, because we don't have control over it, because we have a greater reason to stop those habits or those norms that we have been used to before. So if a disease is going to put our life at risk, of course, we can change that. That's why we're human beings. We're able to, think critically, solve problems. So you can devise a new way of shaking hands. We can devise a new way of breathing. So there's nothing wrong with that. But the truth about it is that we choose life first. And if this is one of the things we need to avoid to prevent infection of COVID-19, then we have to just live with that new normal. After it should not become a big deal again. In fact, we even forget, that's one good thing about human beings. We are so resilient. We don't really know at times how resilient we are. after being through this crisis, another 20, 30 years, I'm telling you that we would have forgotten about this crisis that we're going through right now. Think about it, this same issue happened over 100 years ago. So, and we are back here, again. So the truth about it is that we will adjust. As human beings, we have that capacity, we have that strength. And the new normal, the new way of doing things, we become used to it with time. So the socializing still continues after COVID-19. Obviously, with time, that a vaccine is going to come out in the next or 18 months. Treatment will be out in the next 12 to 18 months. So we'll be out of the woods at that point in time. But it's redefining the way we greet and socialize, because we now appreciate the fact that microbes, viruses, bacteria, like that has really put personal hygiene, has brought it to the forefront, and we are now taking it very, very seriously.
Having a little bit of a network issue.
We had that reminder during Ebola, I was saying, but we kind of like, we went laid back, for a while until COVID-19 had to bring it up again. But we're going to take things seriously going forward. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. There's a next question asking, with the uncertainties in the macro and microeconomics of the country, the noiseless effects gets morale of the workforce down. How can we ensure morale is high using NLP techniques? I believe that goes to Mr. Tunji Babajide.
Okay, thank you so very much. Yes, we are aware. I mean, all of us will agree to the fact that yes, the morale will go down. I think a few things need to be done. Number one, the HR team needs to begin to put certain measures in place to help, or certain trainings or certain forums in place where people can find motivation, where people can find that energy, where they can give their best at work. That's the first thing. Also, it's important for organizations to deploy the employee assistance program, where they will be able to help different people. Yes, I understand that the economy hasn't been, fruitful. The pandemic has made a lot of people cut down their budget, but we also need to flip the coin and look at the impact of that vis-a-vis what is happening. So it depends on our budget, it depends on our approach, it depends on how we want to leave our employees, because to say that these things will not be a continuum, will be living in denial. Okay, so I think that different organizations need to look into their budgets and accommodate that. They need to look into how trainings can have mental health awareness, can have emotional resilience session, can have coaching session. There can be group coaching where you don't even have to do one-on-one, where everyone can gain clarity. I can tell you for free that many employees don't have clarity at this time, because it's difficult to have vision, to have clarity when there's uncertainty. Okay, so I think it's dependent on the organization, and for individuals, I will encourage that you embrace support system. Find someone that you can be vulnerable with, someone you trust, who your values align. Also, I will encourage you alter your lifestyle. Okay. Also, I will encourage some form of exercise if you say in an environment where you can do some work, so that you can break that negative energy in you, because you see, you can't be exercising and be depressed at the same time. That's what research tells us. So those 3-4 things will help on their way to finding professional help. But I'm doing a lot of clarion call now for HR managers, for CEOs, to make forums where mental health awareness, emotional resilience, particularly emotional intelligence session, can be deployed as a palliative for all of these things that we're facing.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Tunji Babajide.
My pleasure.
The next question is, what business strategies can an organization adopt along with mental health and wellness to enhance performance, giving cognizance to top line and bottom line. So the person is looking at bottom line, top line, and adoption of mental health and wellness to enhance performance.
I think the first thing is for us to do an awareness to get everyone to a point where they will stop stigmatizing mental health. They can get familiar with the symptoms of mental health. They can understand how their thoughts and their beliefs, their thinking, and how much baggage they're bringing from their past. So permit me to share just one story, just one experience of my life in 1 minute, and you will see what I'm talking about. So I grew up in a polygamous home, and then my mom used to beat my dad. I mean, one thing my dad used to do, my dad would slam the door on my mom and work out. I told all my sisters I would never do that in my entire life. I got married. Guess what? 6 months into my marriage, I didn't beat my wife, but I did exactly what my dad did. My dad used to slam the door. I would also slam the door and walk out to my wife. What happened? There had been a lot of subliminal learning. Okay, and a lot of people are not even conscious of the fact that they are displaying negative, disempowering emotions, beliefs that is a baggage from their past. That's what therapy does. Therapy helps you unlearn and decluster some of your inherited opinions, some of your inherited beliefs, some inherited values that society, our DNA, our environment had ushered to us. So for years, I had unconscious competence in the wrong thing. I felt it was the right thing to work in malice with my wife until I started, the journey of coaching and therapy, and I realized that I had been programmed because everyone is running a script. I'm running a script, you're running a script, and the beginning of maturity is for you to be able to rescript yourself for the life that you have envisioned. Because when I run training, one powerful exercise I do, I always tell people to attend their funeral. the effect is huge. Because if you don't think from the end and begin to live intentionally, you will embrace unconscious competencies about negative emotions. We will keep saying things like, oh, Semi got me angry, Ibukun got me angry. The reality is that nobody can get anyone angry. It is the weakness of our society that makes us blame the other party for our unconscious competence. Okay, and that need requires unlearning. So if organizations and individuals can embrace coaching and therapy, they will unlearn certain unconscious competence. Jokingly, I was saying to the guy in the car with me this morning that something that is worse than being afflicted by the devil is when you are in delusion, when you have unconscious competence in the wrong thing, and when you are not even ready to listen. It's worse than spiritual attack. Okay, so I think all of that would help going forward.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, sir. The next question is, with the obvious negligence of the government in the form of law and education, how would the common man, in quotes, get awareness about mental health? What part do you think the organized sector can contribute to this awareness? So I think that's to both everybody on the panel, please. What do you think the organized sector can contribute to this awareness on mental health?
I think Simi should go first on that.
Okay.
Let's allow Simi to go first.
For me, I don't underestimate the influence that the local community leaders can have on the people in their community. And, as someone that's worked in HR for such a long time and have engaged or participated in various community-related initiatives or corporate social responsibility initiatives, most of the time, the way we can get in tune with the community or get in touch or engage with the community is through their leaders, either the community leaders or the religious leaders. Those are the two most important people that the local man on the street would trust easily. So in order for you to be able to pass messages across, either messages of support or engagement, aside dealing with the soft issue and the physical issue of giving them handouts or giving them financial aid, you can also have, come down to their level and have productive conversations with them through their community leaders. there's no way you can reach them directly that they will give you 100% attention. But if you can engage the trust of their community leaders, you'll be able to get a lot of feedback and correspondence with the layman on the street without having them wait for the government intervention, which might not come at all. That's my take.
Okay, can I say something?
Okay.
Okay, please go ahead. In 2 minutes, sir.
Okay. So I've been an advocate for organizations to put funds together and start to create therapy hubs. What will a therapy hub do? A therapy hub is a place where it's just like a CSR, where people who've got mental health issues will, there's a system around it where people can sign in and say, I want to see a therapist. So the therapists bring equity of their experience and their time, and they're paid not their market value, but something to say, I'm giving back to the society. Then the organization picks out of their budget for CSR and say, every Monday or Tuesday or every Wednesday, we want people to come into this particular place, and it's part of our giving back to the society. I think that if organizations can put funds together, we can have therapy hubs at the different local governments so that therapists can be paid to be there once, twice a week, and we can reduce people who don't have access to this to therapy for these mental health issues. And also, I also want to tell everyone that is watching right now, that is on this webinar, we can all become mental health advocates by just posting something that you have learned today. So it's a collective, and it has to be seen from that perspective if we're going to really deal with the predictions of the WHO that we saw earlier.
Okay, just to add to that, like Tunji and Simi have said, we need to build capacity in this area. It's obvious that mental health has been actually neglected for a long time. I was at the National Assembly a couple of months back, where we're trying to pass the new mental health bill. We've not had a properly updated mental health bill for decades in this country. That shows that we've not really paid a lot of attention to mental health. And it's high time we started doing that. So there are a lot of people in that value chain. You have the therapists, you have the coaches, then you move up, you have the psychologists, mainly clinical psychologists and other forms of psychology, then you have the psychiatrists. So we need to actually build this capacity in this area, having enough workforce, across the country to actually help to drive, wellness and health and mental health. Because once we are resilient in this area, we can face anything, actually. We need that capacity to be able to actually do a lot of good things as a nation. So it's our time we started addressing those things now and build more capacity for mental health. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. I believe the next question is, how do we shift our society from being a judgmental one to one that has empathy? Because judgmental opinions cause a lot of people to suffer in silence.
It's going to be very difficult. This is what I say to people. Don't blame people for who they are. You take responsibility for who you are. It's in our fabric. It's in the fabric of our culture. It's part of us. Unconsciously, it's been a skill that's been transferred from one generation to another generation. So I think that to flip that question a bit, I think that everyone needs to take responsibility for their emotions, take responsibility for how they perceive, because life is 10% of what happens to you, 90% of how you respond to it. If we have this narrative being pushed out there, people will be a lot more, or different people will be a lot more resilient, or be a lot more prepared for the impact. We can't stop it. It's difficult to stop. Just the same way you can't stop rain from falling on you when you're out there. It's difficult to stop people being sacrosanct, people being judgmental, people being, all of that, like Dr. Muyiwa said, it will require capacity development. It will require National Orientation Agency to push out more stuff there. It will require you and I putting funds together to put out flyers and all of that. But it would take a lot. I think that anyone in that space should just develop emotional resilience, do expectation management, because we're hurt because our expectations are not met. But when you scale down your expectation, you realize that you can manage challenges of life a lot better.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay.
There are people asking for presentation slides of the
Yes, yes,
seminar, both
we'll send it to them.
Dr. Muiwa and
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll send it to
it will
them.
be sent. It will be
We'll be
sent
sending
within
it.
okay,
24 hours to all attendees.
okay. Thank you very much for that. Then there are two more questions that we are going to um, answer because one of the questions already has been addressed. There is one asking, what are the underlying signs that we need to look at for whether at home, office, and all, bearing in mind that an average human being can put up bold faces in the midst of hurting pressures.
Okay,
So I
so
think this is to both because we're all involved in
let me
things.
allow
How do you recognize?
Dr. Muyiwa can start there. Maybe I'll just add a few things.
Okay.
Sorry?
I said, Dr. Muyiwa,
Yeah,
I
we'll
want
go
you
ahead.
to.
So the question says that what are the underlying signs we need to look at for whether at home or at the office, putting in mind that people can put up bold faces in the midst of urgent
Yeah.
pressure. So there are pressures at work and home, and then they are putting up bold faces. What are the underlying signs that management can look for, HRs can look for, and the people who are mental health experts can also help us to identify?
Okay. Well, I would like Simi to go first on that as an HR executive, and I'll join and yeah, we want our perspective.
So, okay. So there's a popular saying that not everyone that is dressed properly that is mentally stable. I think it's said in the local language. So when you say it in the local language, it sounds really funny, but it's a sad reality. A lot of people, especially because of the culture of the organization and the structure of the organization, have to comport themselves in the work environment. So there's this thinking or this perception that you need to pocket whatever it is that is happening with you at home or whatever it is that is going on with your personal life. When you're at work, you deal with the work situation. A lot of people can cover it up for such a long time, put up a bold front about their personal life, but it's just a matter of time that cracks will start to appear. And when I talk about cracks, the cracks is usually a subject of some sort of underperformance, or balls will start to drop, or people start to do silly things that usually they would not do, or things that don't even make any sense, and it's bereft of anyone's imagination, or is even not peculiar to that specific individual. So that's why I said that the engagement that managers should have with their direct report is extremely important. If you can have consistent engagement with your direct report will become very comfortable and would be able to start a conversation, no matter how small it is, with you. And as HR, we should encourage that form of engagement. We should encourage informal meetings. We should encourage one-on-ones. It's not just when it's time for performance evaluation or your monthly evaluation or weekly catch-up. You should have informal conversations, especially at this particular time, with your employees. That's the major way that you'll be able to detect if there's a problem or if there's anything amiss that you need to support. Nobody is a soothsayer or can read palms, but if you bring yourself to a level where you engage your employees, then you'll be able to get the information of whatever it is that is bothering them, and we'll be able to take it up from there and make the adequate recommendation for support.
Thank you, Simi.
Okay.
All right.
My own take is that, yeah, like you said, we need to be observant. We need to watch our employees, our staff, our colleagues closely. And when we notice something that is strange, yes, we might think that, well, why am I getting into this person's personal business? But the truth about it is that that personal business is going to affect the work. So we need to be our brother's keeper. As much as we cannot turn the workplace into like a home, a family, because things cannot go the other way if you do that. When people start, you know, when there's not a mommy and daddy at work and things like that, you know, it's not now professional, it's not like business. So, but you must be able to strike the balance, you know, and refer them to where they will get appropriate therapy, where they will get appropriate help. But you must be sensitive enough to be able to see when the person is actually going off track. You notice it from the way he does the work. You will not be able to maintain that consistency again. There will be something we give at some point, and you cannot ask that question like Simi said, is there anything wrong? And most of the time, people are dying to just say what's on their mind, and you see them busting out. Then you can now refer them, maybe to see a therapist, to see a coach, to see a psychologist, to see a psychiatrist or whatever it may be. I think that's the best way to look at it.
Okay, so just a quick one also. I think it's also important for us to, you know, I think it was Peter Drucker or one of these great authors that said, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. I think if the energy in the team is cordial, it will be easy for you to know when someone has got into a withdrawal mode, when someone has lost appetite. Maybe the person has been a very high consumer of maybe a particular kind of food before, but you realize that if there's a drop in appetite, social life she's not as, up and doing as she used to be. She's dropping the ball. Someone who is always very, very on top of her game, you realize that she's suboptimal. Someone who can get over very little, challenges at work, gets very touchy. So it's like Dr. Muyiwa said, it's a capacity building a journey that we have to embark on so that everyone can be equipped to be able to discern, to be able to elicit from behavior, from conduct, from different things, how to know who has the symptoms.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Simi, Dr. Lusaya, and Mr. Tunji. We are having a request for your social media handles, if possible, to be shared. Okay. Then the last question is, a pertinent question is unavailability of funds at these times. How can a HR professional implement employee support programs for staff, especially when revenue is dwindling and the companies are looking towards, just not spending and keeping within the amount they have with them?
Okay, so let me answer that first. I think this is a time for a lot of us to become innovative and put our ears to the ground as organizations. There is no doubt that budgets have been slashed and the economy is not smiling. A lot of organizations are struggling with regards to how much they would like to invest on employees aside the salary. They can barely keep up with the salaries and benefits that are supposed to go to the employees. But in this age of the pandemic, there's a lot of non-profits and a lot of free resources that are available online. The internet is your friend. A lot of organizations and a lot of non-profits are coming up with a lot of support ideas that employees and people can tap into. So I think it's time for HR to, pay attention to such. Look at the one that would best suit your organization and take advantage of it. That's one of the things I would recommend at this particular time.
Okay, I also think it's all about priority. You see, because everybody will spend whatever they think is a priority to them. And I always like to give this classic. If they say, go and see a dentist, go and see a dentist, I don't have time. I'm too busy. I'm very busy. I don't have time. It's in Adela Odeku. I'm in VI. The day you can't chew again, somebody will drag you or you will drive yourself to a dentist that you didn't have time for. So I think it's about priority, and one. Then number two, I think also that there can be some level of partnership where there can be group coaching and therapy, so that the budget that usually should be deployed towards maybe 5 people can be used for maybe 120 people. I think there's always a way around it. If we think it's a priority for us, I always believe that there can be some budget allocated to it.
I agree with Tunji on that. We should put focus. We should put focus on employee assistance programs, because that's the way to go. We must see mental health, from the workplace, and look for ways to make sure that we help our staffers are in the right frame of mind to face all the challenges. Because the truth about it is that the company must not be selfish. While the employee is trying to make you achieve your own goals as a corporate organization, you must be committed to helping him to achieve his own purpose too. And that way, those things can actually be, prioritized, and some funding and some help coming in the way of employee assistance programs.
Okay, we've come to the end of the Q&A session.
There's one question.
There's one
Yes,
question that we not answer. One or two. One from
Yeah.
Zainab Diko. Yes.
Do you think that couples should regularly seek emotional therapy sessions, bearing in mind that the pressure may also come from home? Absolutely. Absolutely. Just the same way HMOs have packages for, if they have a family package where if a man works with a company, the wife and the children have access to the HMO. The same way, I think that employee support programs or employee assistance programs can be extended to that point where when there's that diagnosis and we realize that the trigger for the negative emotion is from the family or from the home, then that can be looked into, because there is no way you can distance whatever happens from home at home with what happens at work. At some point, the transferred aggression will come on the table, and they will have to deal with it. Sadly, they say when two elephants are fighting in the grass, that will bear the brunt. So most times, the subordinates who didn't have any clue about what happened at home usually are the worst hit when this is happening. So it's highly recommended that couples should please seek emotional therapy to unlearn, especially the baggage they're bringing from the past that is sabotaging the vision they have for the future.
I think we have like 3 other questions we missed. One from Zainab Diko.
Okay.
I don't think we've taken that.
No, we've taken it.
Okay, we've taken it already.
Yes,
Then there's one from Kolakpo. How can organization and government build resilience to future crisis? Is in the open question and answer segment,
Okay.
not in the chat. Yes.
Okay. I missed that.
It's under Q&A.
Okay.
Can you call the question again? I'm trying to look.
How can organizations and government build resilience to future crisis? And that's actually a very good question. Like the COVID-19, how can governments and organizations build, yes, for upcoming future crisis? Let me go. Oh, Tunji, you can go.
Okay, so I think merging the two will be a misfit. Organization is subjective to government policies, subjective to political parties, subjective to personal interests. I don't need to whip the horse and kill the horse. We're aware of all of that. I think that organizations also need to come to find the way where they could partner with maybe other organizations in that space to say, okay, instead of selling this for this, can you give it to us for this? We're going to do volume. I think the most important thing, like I said earlier, is for us to sit down and ask very intentional questions. What is too much? What is too little? What can we do? What can we do differently? One thing I always say to organizations is we need to be careful not to be committed to what has expired. Okay, so whatever it is that is on our table, if we can, that's what we call the T-GROW model: T for topic, G for goal, R for reality, O for options, W for way forward. If we follow that model, there's always a way around whatever task or challenge that we have as an organization. But I won't merge it together because their values and the operational systems are very parallel.
Okay. My own side to that is that there will be future crisis. Let's brace up for it. That's the reality.
Yeah.
And the truth is that we need to have that capacity to be able to think critically because more is still going to come. It might come in another way. It might not be about a biological issue. It might not be an infection. It might be something else. It might be terrorism because we've been exposed to that before, and that was even going on in Nigeria before coronavirus, came on board. So we need to actually build that capacity, and that's what we're talking about: mental health, so that everybody has that resilience inside of you, and you can actually face those challenges using all those principles and leveraging on all the structures for support and all that. So, but what is important is that we need to bring in more hands to work in mental health because we need to strengthen that system, that mental health system, so that people can actually have all the support they need. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I believe that we've answered all the questions available to
Yeah.
us. Thank you
If
very
there's
much.
anyone, we can just signify. If anybody in the audience that you have a question that we have not answered, you can just signify by raise of hands, and we can check it in the list. Saying before we leave.
Oluwase Kayode is raising a hand.
Okay, that means he has a question we haven't answered.
Yeah.
Can you look through and pick a question from Oluwase Kayode?
I guess he wants to speak or something, or she wants to speak. Maybe we should unmute his
mic. Yeah, I already posted it. We'll just read it.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Ibukun, please go ahead. Read the question. At 11 a.m. Look at the time. 11 a.m.
I didn't get that question.
It says now that we. Okay, let me go ahead. Let me read it. I said thank you very much,
Okay.
Dr. Lucia and Mr. Tunji Babajide, for the beautiful thought-leading presentation. Now that we are all faced with the reality of working from home as a new normal, can some perspective be shared on how effectively employers can help maintain a good work-life balance for their employees? I think Simi should help us with this. Now that we are faced with the reality of working from home as a new normal, can some perspective be shared on how effectively employers can help maintain a good work-life balance for their employees?
Okay, so if I'm going to talk from personal experience, this working from home is very new to a lot of us. A lot of employees and a lot of organizations didn't embrace this particular concept until COVID-19 forced everyone to think fast, and the government regulations pushed us to quickly sort ourselves out in terms of how business would continue while we are at home. And the first few weeks of this, we found that a lot of people were stressed. They hardly could balance the time they were using to do the work and the time left to support their families and support the kids and do things for themselves. So we find that a lot of people were working up till in the night and up till unholy hours, and stress was setting in. So one of the few things that we did was to do a survey. We did a survey among the employees and ask very clear questions. We didn't make it very exhaustive. You ask very clear questions as to how the working from home has been from them. What are the things that are needed to enhance the work from home experience? Would you like to continue to do this going forward? What's your ideal work situation going forward, considering COVID-19? And with the survey, you'll be able to figure out the pulse of the employees, come up with different initiatives that will make their work life easier. And one of the things we have to pay attention to as employers and also as HR that advises employers is that the routine for the work environment when you're working from the office shouldn't should be maintained to a reasonable extent. And I'm talking about, we're talking about 8 to 5. We should respect people's time between the hours of 8 and 12 o'clock could be the work time, or 9 and 12 o'clock, depending on the organization that you work for. We should give allowance for people to have their break times, their lunch times. And we should also note that by the evening time, between 4 and 5, employees are rounding up. We shouldn't set meetings to unholy hours because the employees are working from home and you believe that they will be available. And that should be put into consideration. We should also put into consideration employees that have at school-age children, and understand that those employees would need time, especially in the morning period, to support their kids or their wards with schoolwork and the online Zoom classes. So we have to step up and be more flexible as to how you expect your deliverables from them, and engage them to know the convenient time that they will be able to make themselves available to deliver on their work or to attend meetings. So those are some of the things you should consider to keep your employees fully engaged. So once they can trust that you have their back and you are thinking about the immediate well-being, then they would put in the commitment more into the job.
Okay, so let me just add this. I think that also it's important to build capacity in that area. They say that it's insanity for you to keep doing the same thing and expect another result. I think for us to be fair on our employees, it's important for us to have a training. Things like have normal work hours. I mean, all the time I was home, all I kept doing was I go into one of the rooms, I dress as one day my son said, "Are you going to work?" I said, "Yes, I'm going to work." But there's lockdown. I said, "That's my office." Dress the same way. However, if we don't communicate this expectation, there will be conflict. So I think it starts with communicating it, building capacity to fit into that new normal so that both parties know what is expected from each other. Then we can now use technology to evaluate. I mean, there's several things we can do with technology and all of that. But I think it starts with communication, building capacity, then exploring the options available depending on the industry that we're in.
Okay. Thank you very much.
There's a question from Mudashiru. Let's take it.
Yes, I've seen the question. The person is asking, what is health partners, so that is to you, Dr. Olusoya, doing to relieve their clients as a palliative because of the COVID-19 lockdown? Some service providers did it, like a month or 2 month subscription paid back to their clients. So they're asking you for some business decisions, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mudashiru. The truth about it is that a lot of things we can do to actually cushion the effects of COVID-19. And it's not necessarily about money. First of all, we're an insurance companies. We take risk, we bear risk. And these are the times that we actually, show our strength as insurance companies. The fact that we're able to carry people when things are challenging. So based on the premiums that have been paid, we can look at it and look at the history of the client. And if there's any concession we can give, we'll look at it. But realize this, we're an insurance company, we are bearing risk, and we take care of claims for health insurance services. So we are not like a government that will be giving out palliative. It's government that gives out palliative. We cannot give out palliative. Our job is to make sure that those benefits we have insured, we pay the claims. For example, during the lockdown, more accidents occurred during the lockdown because for the few cars that were moving, people were overspeeding, there were a lot of accidents. And one of our enrollees that was on our lowest plan actually ended up in the ICU. Wow. There was an accident on the Lekki-Ajah Expressway. I think the car he was in was overspeeding. The roads were very free, and he had a ghastly motor accident. The person was in the ICU for about 5 or 6 days. And our partners had to go outside what was covered to make sure that the person gets the full benefits of the ICU care, even though it was on a lower plan. Then our company also assisted and also came in for the employee and also assisted to pay some of the bills. So those are some of the things we are doing because that's our work as an insurance company. We did not actually go by the book and say, we dot the I's, we cross the T. We actually gave some concession and made sure that the person was covered even during that crisis, you know, even for things that won't have been covered. So for people that have issues with their premium, we have had that discussions with them. We look at the profile, we look at the utilization of the business. And if there is something we can grant based on the utilization, you know, we can look at a way to assist. But if for example, the claims, the company has already maxed out all its benefits, they already maxed out all the claims, there is nothing to give because we are not government. We're a business, we're an insurance company. But there are other things we can do. We provided health promotion, health education. This webinar is also one of those efforts, some of the things we are giving to provide knowledge, to strengthen the knowledge that our HR practitioners have so that they can also help to manage people during this crisis as they are taking those decisions. So that's my response to that. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone. All of our 88 participants, remaining 72 now. Mrs. Simi Taiwo, the head of Human Resource ATC Nigeria. Mr. Tunji Babajide, the CEO, Awesome Effects Consult, and Dr. Olumuyiwa Olusanya of Health Partners HMO. Any last words, everyone, before we close this meeting?
Well, I would like to thank everybody for joining us today. This is the first of its kind from Health Partners. And we appreciate all our lovely participants, attendees that took out time this Friday morning, beautiful Friday morning, I must say, to join us as we discuss all these issues. I've learned a lot. I learned a lot from the participants, from the questions they had. I learned a lot from the panelists, from Simi, from Tunji, and it was a good discuss. And I think that it's the right timing. And we're going to be looking at areas that we can also speak to, areas where there are issues that we can use this platform to actually address. Because this platform actually makes sure that there are no walls. We can all connect, we can all share thoughts, we can learn from each other. And one of the functions of the HMO is to drive health and wellness through health promotion and health education. And this year and going forward, Health Partners intends to do this very, very well, deploying technology and make sure that we can really add value to all our clientele. Also, for our clients that will need specialized coaching, consulting, we have arrangements for all the people that attended this seminar that will probably need group coaching at their offices, or maybe for specific staff or employees, you know, personnel. For attending this meeting, you are going to be entitled to 20 to 25% discount. I've extracted our commitment from Tunji Babajide. So we have the list of all the participants at this meeting. So should anybody request any coaching service, whether corporate or individual, they will actually get up to 25% discount because we can actually verify that you attended the webinar. Then in addition, we'll be issuing attendance certificates to all our participants. You will get it via your mail within the next 48 hours to be sent to your mails with the copies of the slides of this session. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thank you, Dr. Miwa, for having me. Thank you, Simi. Thank you, Ibukun, for being amazing.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Bye.
Ms. Simi. Bye for now. It's nice
Bye.
having you.
Bye, everybody. Thanks a lot.
Bye.